ADRAMADA! And welcome to ADRAMADA. What does that stand for? Another Dave Rush Ask Me Anything Digital Alchemy. And it must be then 7 o'clock on a Thursday night. So glad to have you here. Excuse me. I'm mostly done with that nonsense, but there's always just a little bit. Anyways, I am David Rush, your tech from Texas. This is ADRAMADA. Come for the shirt. Stay for the news and the project. Oh, fun little project today. I am your host, the aforementioned David Rush, known as self-titled Commodore ADRAMADA, and that makes you the ADRAMADA Armada. I love that. Well, we're here because we love tech. Bottom line, this show is devoted to collecting and disseminating information on various technologies and its uses, and in particular, we're interested in how the advancement of technology impacts our daily and our long-term lives. Topics are wide-ranging. We celebrate technology from electric cars to electric guitars, music and movies, the synergy of energy, booting to computing, Linux to ethics, the chase to space. Lots of space news today. Cyber to fiber, security to electricity, Raspberry Pi to Li-Fi and AI, and we're not afraid to delve into social topics, including religion, sex, politics, and that's it. I got rid of that fourth item. I got to pull that out of my template. I know we haven't done that in a while. Well, about once a month is kind of a nice reminder to let everybody know why we are here, and why you're here. I see a lot of you. This will be fun. I'll check on everybody in just a moment. Today, as we record this live, is Thursday, May the 2nd, 2 days before the official Star Wars Day. May the Force be with you. And one of the movies, I think they added the word always to that. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, or bolster me if I'm right. So we're doing this 2 days early, and what that means, of course, is the years back up a day every year, and then you got to throw in leap years and things like that. The bottom line is the next time Star Wars Day falls on a Thursday, we have to wonder if this show will still be in production or if there'll be another iteration of it. I hope it still is. But it's not going to be, this is 2024, for another 4 years, 2028. Star Wars Day will be on a Thursday. So it's been a busy week. I spent all 5 days of last week and the first 2 days of this week working the early voting polls. I wanted to be a low-life clerk. That's not a low-life. It's a wonderful position. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to work as a clerk. I did not want to be the presiding judge over it. Early voting, it's just, that's a pain. And so I told them, and I said, look, I have to work as well as work. And they said, fine, we need bodies in there. You can be a clerk and you can bring your work in. So, and lots of things happened last week that made working during the show, during the voting period, very necessary. So the good news is 7 days of early voting, about 43 voters. So I was able to get a lot done. I'm going to work the polls again this Saturday, 2 days from today. And that will be regular voting. It's just a funky little district kind of thing. If we get 20 people in there, it'll be a miracle. But I will be working again. Today's date, noteworthy because no good reason. I go through these, historical things that happen on this day in history, and there was just, obviously there's always stuff in there, but nothing that kind of fits our modus operandi, so I let that one go. And so with that, eep, op, orc, ah. Let's see who's here. So Tolowit changed his approach. He no longer will check in as soon as he gets up on Thursdays to post that first meeting. So Shia, you're going to be the winner here for a while until somebody decides to pick up the mantle. Shia pumped in about 2.5 hours before showtime. Good to see you. Patricia Grace back in the fold. Welcome home. New Star Wars ADRAMADA BBS coming soon. Goodness gracious, that was a tug on the nostalgic heartstrings. BBS is... I hope your meeting with donors went well last week, Patricia. And good afternoon to Tullowit. Showed up about half an hour before showtime. And it's good evening where Shia is. So fingers crossed for good audio. I didn't make any changes. I don't see anybody griping. I beg your pardon. Okay, we'll take that as it's all good. Yes, we are praying. But as I said, I am not praying. Of all the things that I pray for, good audio is not among them. And hopefully I have higher priorities in life when it comes to serving the Almighty. Thank you. Let's see what else we got here. We'll always have Paris. Oh, Rick. What's her name? Elsa. My favorite movie, right? When they did the top 100 movies every couple of years, and it's always split between either Casablanca or, Rosebud. What's the name of the film? Either way, Rosebud always wins, and sorry, they're wrong. It's Casablanca. All right, come on, Tullowit. Nah, I had it on the top of my head when I started. Thank you, Citizen Kane. There we go. Thank you, my friend. 2028. See you there. Jason Helms, amongst the living. Welcome, Jason. I am fine, actually. I sound worse than I am. Dinner was great. Thank you. Wonderful. And Tolwyn, I hope that you are recovered by now. The Passover Seder should have long been passed by this time. If you're still carrying around symptoms, you might want to go see a doctor. Do not go see a moil. He will not help an upset stomach. I'm not going to explain it. I'm just wondering how many people. I don't know what that is. I'm going to go look it up. And then, Dave, I can't believe you said that. Okay, good. You're better now. Reading here. Not much. Been gaming like a fool. I have gaming news in the news today. Everybody jumped in with Citizen Kane. I was the loser. I need to watch Kids in the Hall. I love Kids in the Hall. I don't know the skit you're talking about, but I will. Problem child. All right. Well, we are underway here. I'm going to vamp a lot. Today's project is quick, fun, easy, painless. I'll add a little bit of background to it, but we had some flash flooding here, today, and it was high. It was really, really, really high. I've lived in this home since 99. So 25 years. I have seen flooding happen here. Today, as high as I have ever seen it. Only one other time did I see it this high, and that was close to 20 years ago. So it was something. I'll show you some pictures in just a second. So when that happens, I'm at the bottom of a street, not much of a slope or anything like that, but all the water slopes down to our little cul-de-sac, and there's a big storm drain between myself and my neighbor's house. Actually, no, it's in front of my neighbor's house. And when debris comes down, it loads up that storm drain, and then the street floods. So I went out this morning. My neighbor was out there with some kind of implement of destruction clearing the drain. So I grabbed a metal rake, and I went out to join them. And she pulled out this broom, which was this deep in the water, maybe more. And so I started raking and dragging, and nothing came up. So what happens is the storm drain leads into a bayou, a little creek around here. which feeds the swamps farther south. And there's a great big coal pipe in there. It's probably 7-8 feet in diameter, and all of the drains in the neighborhood lead to that. And they're storm drains, they're not sewer drains, of course, and that feeds into the bayou. So what happens eventually is there's so much water filling the bayou from upstream and this that the bayou fills up over the top of that culvert, and that causes everything to back up. And all you can do is wait and hope and pray that the bayou dips down enough that water starts flowing again. We went through 2 cycles of panic. One of them I had water licking my garage, and from the point that I stand on my garage to the base of my driveway, that's a steep slope. That's about 5 feet or so. And so let's just share with you briefly, because I have time to do this today. We'll come back to this guy. Oh, no, that's not what I want to do. Slideshow 2. There we go. This. All right, so this is part of my backyard. We call this Lake Rush whenever these happens. And this is very normal. A good heavy rain will do that to us. Slideshow player, there we go. That's me coming in after raking the outside. The water, you can see, was up to the top of my thighs. And hard to tell here, but water is up about halfway up the back of the back tire. So that was about 3.5 feet from the base of the garage. You can barely see it, but over the top of the car, there are a couple mailboxes. The water level is in line with the roof of the car. There's a better view of that. Back to Lake Rush. There's the rest of Lake Rush in the middle of the yard. There we go. You can see it all. Water coming up on the tire. That's really high for us. My neighbor, his mailbox there, kind of left center of the frame. I walked down to the base of his driveway where it meets the cul-de-sac, and you can see all this grass is underwater. It's about 2/3 of our yard is underwater. Big deal. That's my mailbox out there underwater. I should have taken a picture of it when the water is receded to give you an idea of just how high that is, but it's really, really, really high. You can see how heavy the rains are coming down there. So we had a lot of fun today. The waters have receded. I did go out to the bayou and take a look at the culvert and see how much was uncovered. At the time that I went down, about 1 foot was clear, and that was enough to keep the water flowing. But at some point before that, water came over the bridge and over the culvert pipe and backed up the entire neighborhood. It was something. Yay! Is that all of it? Close enough. Yeah. So what else is cooking? I am a little worried, or at least I was, because I saw a dove fly over the cul-de-sac, and it was carrying an olive twig. Hey, if you are watching this on archive, or you're even watching it live, and you're not already a member of our Discord server, here is an invitation. We're trying to grow it. It's a bunch of tech people. We talk all kinds of tech. We have error. You're not receiving enough video to maintain a stream. As such, viewers will experience... Okay, you might get some buffering. Sorry, guys. I have no control over that. That's the impact of the flooding on the internet connection. Nothing I can do about that. Anyway, so we got techie, we got humor, we have zillions and zillions of channels. Please come on over, join the Discord server. We've got lots of really cool stuff on there, and it grows all the time. You can contact me there if for some twisted reason you want to do that. And there's other ways to contact me, like the email addresses that I have just posted in the chat feed. I always welcome everybody's contact. It's a lot of fun. I have recently, in the last month or two, joined the social media platforms that everybody's on these days. So here's my stuff for X and for Mastodon. Nothing much going on Mastodon yet, but I have faith and patience. Let's see. I didn't do slides for last week and this week's show. Last week's show, what did we? Oh, we did. Man, that was fun. We talked about how to capture data, live streaming data, live data as it flows in and out of it. Okay, reconnected, it says. Thank you, Tullerwit. Can always count on you for a really bad pun. All right, where was I going? Anyways, so we captured data using mirrored port or a mirrored port, and then a workstation, a host running TCP dump or Wireshark or some other packet capture. That was kind of cool. This week's show, we are, of course, celebrating Star Wars Day. All right. And we're going to talk about Telnet, and I'm going to tie the two of those things together in a very brief and super fun project. Yeah, I got a message about buffering and a disconnect, and that's the impact of high waters around here. Nothing I can do about that for days, so we'll take it as it goes. Okay, let's talk about news in the news. We need to go over to here, transition this to that. And we're happening. So I mentioned a month ago, 6 weeks ago, an experiment, a relatively short distance experiment that NASA was doing to see if they can get effective laser communication, point to point, satellite to satellite, Earth to satellite, non-Earth, but other celestial bodies to satellites, and so forth, instead of using radio frequency, using lasers. And they did a short test, and it was successful. Well, they've done the next generation test. There is a robot probe on the way to asteroid Psyche. The name of that probe is the asteroid is 16 Psyche. The name of the probe is Psyche. Now, 16 Psyche is a really cool and very rare, as far as we know, at least in our neck of the woods, rare asteroid, because it appears to be totally comprised of metal, right? Not ice and not rock and not burned coke, like coal coke. So they're going out there, they're going to do some experiments on it and chip some pieces and do whatever. But it also has one of these laser transmitter and receiver setups. And so they did a test on it last week. Did I put a date on this thing? Nah. 140 million miles away. For those of you in the rest of the planet, 225 million kilometers. Obviously larger than the gap between Earth and the Sun at 93 million miles. I have no idea how many kilometers that is. Anyways, and then they did the same data transmission test using radio frequency so that they can confirm the integrity of the two different signals, and because they know that the RF signals tend to be fairly accurate. And it was a marvelously successful test. Imagine that. 140 million miles away, that thing pointed a laser at the right place on the Earth and transmitted. And we pointed to exactly the right place, and that thing is moving. About 25 megabits per second. There's a lot of places on Earth that don't get that at broadband speed. There we go. They did that on April 8th. So lot of milestones on that thing, and it bodes well for future communications from Earth to various space bodies and more. Did about 10 minutes worth of testing, downloading and downlinking. And I don't care about that stuff. 25 megabits per second. Okay, is that good? Yes. Is that really good? Let's compare. Now, we're talking, we talked about this last year. 1977, Voyager 1 launches to leave the solar system with its 5-year lifespan. Here we are 44 years later, and it's still cranking out. When it was new and close to the Earth, that part matters, it had a data transmission rate of 26.1 kilobits per second. And we just moved at 140 million miles, 25 megabits per second. Because of distance now and reduced power because of the age of everything in there, the effective data rate coming out of Voyager 1 right now is 160 bits per second. So, lasers are cool. We should not have the kinds of problems we have with RF. All right, moving on. All right, this is a toughie. You guys know how much I love meteor showers. And so, probably the best meteor shower of the year is going to be Sunday night, Monday morning. It's called the Ada Aquarius. Peaks this weekend. One of the reasons it's going to be the best is because of our location in the trail. It's a trail that we go through twice a year for Halley's Comet. The last time it passed through, it left a big debris stream. And so we're going through it, and we're going through just at the right portion of it. The Earth kind of goes up and down and around. And it, sometimes it skims it, and sometimes it goes right smack dab to the middle of the debris field, which is what's going to happen. So, air, number one, makes it a strongest, possibly of this century. Number two, it's going to be a new moon, very little light to impact the viewing. So, awesome. 2 for 3. Here's the problem. It's not it's not visible at all when it's dark out in the northern hemisphere. Best view is going to be the southern hemisphere, particularly Australia, far south, South America, New Zealand, Antarctica. You can see it in the northern hemisphere, but you're not going to see it with all the power and glory because it's going to be first thing in the morning after sunrise. But sharp eyes, you can see it. And I am very sad that I'm going to miss that. I almost want to launch on Saturday for Australia because it is expected to be so good. Morning of May 6th is the actual peak. We mentioned a little bit about this tech a few months ago. And here's the next step. NASA's advanced solar sail has been successfully deployed in space. Solar sails are a very slow acceleration, but extremely efficient and can get very high speeds. A method to move satellites, spaceships. The bigger the better. The problem with making them bigger is the infrastructure to support them. That's heavy. The machinery to expand it is heavy, and it makes the acceleration much, much, much more slow than if we had lighter or if there was no superstructure, but you've got to have some. So there's an official name for this, something advanced solar sail, something ass. But they put it on a CubeSat with a new kind of super lightweight infrastructure, and they deployed it, I think, on about a week and a half. No, on April 28th. There we go. That was close. 2 weeks ago. They shot up a CubeSat, reached low Earth orbit, deployed a 9x9 meter sail. It took about 25 minutes to deploy it. Now powering up the probe and establishing ground contact. And so the thing's 80 square meters. And if the conditions are right, it may be visible from Earth, possibly being every bit as bright as Sirius, which is a pretty darn bright star. We talked about star brightnesses the other day. Okay, that's news story 3 for 4. Here, sorry, 3 for 5. Here is number 4. Let's keep it in space. This is from the debrief.org. China is going to take another shot at sending a spacecraft to explore and hopefully for them extract and recover some lunar material. The big target for everybody lately, India, China, the U.S., is the lunar South Pole. Nobody's had any luck. So these guys are going to take another stab at the lunar South Pole, and they're going to do it on the dark side of the South Pole. It's a fascinating thing. I don't have the dates in here. Their last effort crashed and burned. I think they called that Rabbit or Lucky Rabbit, something like that. That was in 2020. No, that one was successful. That wasn't Rabbit, because that one was a successful retrieval of lunar surface, and that hasn't been done in decades. So if successful, it'll put a spacecraft near the South Pole in the Aitken Basin, home to the oldest known crater that is presently known. Good grammar, huh? It'll do some drilling and some scooping, collect samples, and may give us some idea of moon formation, lunar formation, by looking at stuff. We've never collected anything from the dark side. Not very far into the dark side, but there it is. One more piece of news. Did I do one more, or did I do 2? Did I do a slide 6? No, I did not do a slide 6. Okay. Proton. Not to be confused with protons. This is from 9 to 5 Linux. Valve, as in Steam, Valve, released today, I think this was actually about 2 days ago or so, Proton 9.0. What is Proton? Proton is Steam's, or Valve's, customized equivalent to Wine. Remember, Wine is a program, an interface, they use a specific technical term for it, a software shim that allows you to run programs designed to run on Windows on a Linux box. Well, they have a highly customized version of this called Proton that allows Steam games, not every one of them, but many of them, that are designed to run under Windows on Linux. And for me, that's very interesting. The native Linux running Steam games, relatively short list compared to Windows games. So this one's got a lot of support for new games and latest improvements over the old one. It runs on the Steam Deck or the desktop Linux, any desktop Linux. And what's really cool about it is you don't have to be a tech weenie to install it. It's in the Steam library. So if you're already a Steam, have a Steam account, you just go through the library, you look for Proton, grab 9.0. It's been out in beta for a while, but now you can, and you just select it, you download and install it just like you would install any other game. And now, if you're playing Linux, there are many Windows games that say, we're going to work on Linux. Yes, they will, once you've installed this. So that's a pretty cool thing. All right, that is all the news that's fit to print. Let's see what you guys are talking about, and then we will do Star Wars Day. Where are we at on time? Perfect. Oh, goodness. Distance in space reminds me of a story. Wouldn't have a parsec in it, would it? Okay, no, it's a real story. All right. When I was a middle school science teacher, we were learning about UV radiation, and I gave students the UV plastic beads. Went outside to charge them up. I was explaining that the brighter and closer the light source, the quicker and stronger it would glow. Okay. One of the students, on hearing this, raised the UV beads above her head. What are you doing? I'm getting it closer to the sun. Hey, no experience, apply the concept. I applaud her in every way. I hope she is a great scientist today. 8th grade, okay. Gotta be in her 30s by now. That would be exciting. Wine is not an emulator. That's exactly what wine stands for. That's right. Jaya, thank you. So wine is an acronym with its own name within the acronym. So technically not possible. What? You haven't heard the term tech weenie? I have called us tech weenies for years. You go ahead and call us nerds. I am a tech weenie, and everyone I associate with, at least in these kinds of environments, are tech weenies. Yes, a recursive acronym. Shia, you are so freaking smart. You are so well read. We have to talk in person. We have to, yeah, like GNU. All right. So I asked everybody for a couple of weeks to post their pictures in Star Wars regalia, and some of you went above and beyond and did some photoshopping so that we could celebrate Star Wars Day. I collected all of the ones that were up as of this afternoon. This is going to look egotistical, but I put a bunch of my own up there, hoping to spur a lot of other activity. It didn't work, but they're in the list, so I'm stuck with it. So let us... Okay, there we go. So our resident Photoshop and video editor, Telnet, has created... sorry, so many different characters. I'm coming up with real names. Obi-Wan, thank you. With with his own head. I like. There's another one coming at the end. Somebody else did something similar. Really good stuff. Okay, slideshow. Why did that? Oh, that's the. Is it that? Did you do identical images there? Yes, because I'm advancing them and they didn't change. There we go. Me with a bunch of different hats and Star Wars shirt as the day goes on. Me and the missus. Just the missus. You get the idea. I'll blast through this. We shot these last night. And that's the set for today. That poster I bought about a week ago from a gent in the Montrose here in Houston. It's a lovely area downtown. He's a lovely man. And he advertised a whole bunch of movie posters. And he had 2 Star Wars posters. This one, and why is that thing going automatically? You're not supposed to do that. Anyways, his name is Michael, and I don't know why that's doing that, but I'm going to keep going back. Michael, he may be watching the show. I shot him the link to it the other day. He had 2 posters, this one and a Jar Jar Binks poster, which he offered to me as well. I declined. Sorry, I just would not put a Jar Jar poster up here for you guys. So sorry. Hopefully, Michael, you're watching. He took such great care of these posters. They're beautifully rolled and uncreased and untorn and rubber banded, but a newspaper wrapped around them first so the rubber band wouldn't get on them, and it was just lovely. So I hung this last night to test it. Is Laura here? I don't see Laura. That's Laura. She photoshopped her head into that. And did a very nice job. All right, that's everything that turned up on there. And that's it for slideshows today. Yay! All right, what else has happened here? You are so very welcome. Jason, I didn't do Star Wars pick, but I did a Star Wars video game. Does that count? Absolutely. Currently one with the Force. Listen, help me. Busy with critical stuff. I said 2 different backgrounds. Oh, okay, they had different backgrounds. The other one was for giggles. And very important. So important, the stormtroopers are looking for me. She's close. All of these pictures, if you want to see them again in slow motion or close up, they're on the Discord server and in the May the 4th channel. Okay, sliding down my notes. There we go. All right, so we've kind of broached one topic today, Star Wars Day. We have another one to broach, and that is Telnet. Let's do a technical talk about here. This isn't deep, this isn't long, it's just kind of interesting. My question sort of came to me on Tuesday of this week. I was having a really tough time coming up with a show topic, especially one that I could dovetail with Star Wars. And that actually sort of happened at the end. Here's a good technical topic. I said to myself, is there a place for Telnet in 2024? It's an old thing. So let's find out. What is Telnet? Well, we always call it a terminal emulator, but that would be a Terem, something like that. Telnet is actually a contraction of teletype over a network. Over, not of. There we go. But though we call it a terminal emulator, and it's so fine. It goes back a million years ago to when there were physical electronic keyboards, and not like we use today, but like typewriters, connected to computers, big mainframe computers with virtual machine sessions that people log into. And then somebody said, hey, let's get rid of those 50-pin serial port connections and move them to less pins, 25 pins and 9 pins. And then let's get this happening over a network. Hey, what a good idea. Now we can do them much greater distances and we can accomplish a lot of things. So it's a very, very, very simple protocol. If you want to call it a program, sure. It has been replaced because of some of its shortcomings by one, hopefully, that we all know and love, SSH, Secure Shell. So right off the bat, there's the big difference between the two. Telnet is not secure. Now, what does secure means? It means encrypted. SSH is encrypted. All right, that's good news. They both have some similarities. They move text, character by character, over a network connection. They are both TCP, not UDP protocols. So Telnet uses TCP port 23 and SSH TCP port 22. They both require a client and a server. You can have them on the same machine, but typically we've got a Telnet or an SSH server running on some box over there, and a Telnet or SSH client running on some other box, and we accessing them remotely over the network. The usual SSH server is a program called OpenSSHD. There are others. The usual server program for Telnet is Telnet-D. And once you set them up, now you have to create accounts on them and passwords in either case. The difference, the real big difference here is if I'm going to do a Telnet connection from a Telnet client to a Telnet server, there is no encryption or decryption. That means there's no overhead. Improves the speed a little bit. That means there is no protection. If anybody is capturing my data, like we talked about last week, on a mirrored port or something like that, that's just pure clean text. Clear text, and they can read what every bit that I sent, every character that I send to the SSH-D server, to the Telnet-D server, and every response that comes back. You can't do that with SSH unless you have the appropriate keys to do that. So I've got kind of 6 or so, maybe a little less than that, comparison questions. So these are very generic. Differences between Telnet and SHD. Is there an initial connection time overhead due to the additional round trips required for encryption, decryption? And there's not a clear answer to that. Yes and no. It's a little bit of overhead on the initial. But here's something that I learned in the process about SSH. This is kind of cool. I did not know this. After you send a gig of data over an SSH connection, it rekeys. It changes its algorithm key, its encryption decryption algorithm key. The same thing happens after you've been connected for more, for more than an hour. So isn't that interesting? How about bandwidth overhead? Is there overhead in each packet transmitted? Is there only because of padding at the end? Yes, there is overhead, more overhead on SSH than on Telnet. There's a random pad that has to be added. Each data packet has to get an HMAC. I'll do HMAC some other day. It gets deep and complicated. I probably never will do HMAC on this show. However, the overhead tends to be on the order of 0.001%. So, especially as you move more and more data. So, comparing speed and overhead and bandwidth of doing Telnet versus SSH, really not much different. So, right now, the only difference that we can find, the only benefit and possible disadvantage, is the encryption. What about CPU overhead on the server side? How much? CPU overhead minimal in either cases, and that was one of the goals of using AES encryption, which is what we're using in SSH right now normally. Do we use symmetric or asymmetric keys? And the answer to that is both. There's an RSA, there's an RSA or a Diffie-Hellman at the beginning, and then we exchange symmetric keys. I'm not going to go through all of that. So it all comes down to no difference in speed and encryption. Now, by the way, if we were to look at those same handful of comparisons and add one other characteristic that is a native capability of SSH, we could do compression, data compression, encryption compression, and that would change some of those stats a little bit. All right, so if the only real practical, real-world difference is encryption, is there a use case for Telnet? And the answer is yes. Use cases are, you can use Telnet any place you can use SSH as far as establishing a remote textual connection between a Telnet server and a Telnet client. That makes sense, right? But there are a lot of text connections that we can do to non-Telnet servers for testing purposes that you can't do without getting really creative and adding a lot of crunchy overhead with SSH. So could you, should you, would you? Maybe. It depends on if you're testing functionality where moving secure data doesn't matter. So for instance, I can set up Telnet with one line in a configuration file to change its default port from 23 to 80. And now I can send and connect to a web server, get commands, send commands, request commands, things like that, just to test the functionality without using a high overhead device like a browser, without using a text-based browser. This is enough to establish a connection and do that. Connections to local devices, if you don't care about security, I don't care if I use Telnet from this computer that I'm touching right now to one of the switches or routers in my home. I'm not worried about anybody in the home intercepting what I'm doing. And I'm not a tasty target. I'm fairly well firewalled from the outside. Theoretically, somebody could get in my system. I wouldn't care if they watched me reconfigure my switch or reconfigure my router. So that's okay internally. Some organizations that might not be appropriate, but there's use cases. The real use case here, those are good ones, is it can be used for fun. Yes. So I'm going to show you right now, right here, right now, 2 ways to set up a Telnet client, and then I'm going to show you how to have fun with it, and I'm going to tie that to Star Wars Day. Great, we got 14 minutes left. This is going to take a couple seconds. So Windows comes with a built-in Telnet client, but it isn't functional right off the bat. So if you hit your Windows Start button and you search for, let me get the right term here to make it easiest. Yeah. Turn Windows features on or off. Then you will find yourself in a menu that looks like this. Windows Capture, Windows Features. Okay, move that up. And I think I can throw a headshot in there. Because I know you just feel nude without seeing my head in a frame. So when you go to turn Windows features on or off, this is a Windows 11 screen, but it looks almost identical in the Windows 10 screen. And you go down alphabetically. We'll get this. There we go. To the T's. And look at this. There is a Telnet client. And all you have to do is click it and OK it. And you can't see this happening right now, but it's done. Windows has collected the required changes, and then it closed that app that I was showing you. Let me bring it right back up here. Stop it. Windows features on or off. Scroll that down, and there, you can see it on screen. So now you can see that the Telnet client is checkmarked. So that's how you do it in Windows. Simple piece of pie. So we'll cancel this. Now let's do this. Install the Telnet client on a Linux machine. Have I got PuTTY up and running? Yes, I do. It's almost like I planned this for a change, huh? All right, so there's my Telnet client. And I want to do a couple things here real quick just to show you. This is an Ubuntu instance running on a Raspberry Pi, hence its name, Ubuntu Pi. And let's see if the Telnet client is available for installation. We will do apt search Telnet. It's kind of like apt-get search Telnet. And let's look through these alphabetically, QRST. And there we go. There's Telnet D. Oh, did I install Telnet here? And so we can't see that? No, there it is. Okay, so here's Telnet, the client. And here is Telnet D, the server. All we need to do is the client. So I'll do a clear sudo apt. By the way, if you were running a Red Hat Linux derivative, do exactly the same thing by saying sudo dnf instead of sudo apt. But we'll do sudo apt install telnet. Bam. Give me a password. Sure. Raspberry. R-A-S-P-B-E-R-R-Y. Bam. And he goes buzz, 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 grind, 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 and it's done. Okay. If you're going to do this in Windows, what I'm about to do, open up the command line first and then type in the command that I'm about to show you. It's the identical command in Windows as it is here. Some very nice folks in the homeland of our good friend Andre de Goyert took the time to render one of the Star Wars movie, A New Hope, which is the first one, into ASCII. And now it's a big ASCII file, and we can watch it with Telnet. All you have to do is type in the following command. And here, I will put that in the chat feed. It's telnet space towel.blinkenlights.nl. So there it is on, let's make sure I'm still showing this, yes. Okay, so telnet space towel.blinkenlights.nl. It's going to take about 15 minutes for the 15 seconds for the movie to start. Bear with me, we got time. So we hit the enter key, bam. And so they identify all the people who put a lot of hard work in here. And this was done a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And you can do it in IPv6 or IPv4. And so here's the beginning of the movie. It's a 20th century text. And then we have to go through that scroller thing. I know, bear with me for just a couple seconds, and then I'll get into here. Episode 4, A New Hope. No, I won't read it all, but I'll let it get past here, and then we'll look at the opening scene, which you may recall is the Star Destroyer that has Vader on it chasing down the ship that has Princess Leia in it. So they're blasting end. Okay, we see our moon. They do the pan down. There's Leia's ship. Here comes the destroyer. And they're shooting. And then we see R2 and 3PO having a little discussion on the whole affair. And this is, it's not an ASCII created movie. This was rendered from the movie. So you have to have watched A New Hope, about 40 or 60 or 100 times to remember every single word. Commander, tear this ship apart. I want them brought alive. You get the idea. I did Control-C here. And you got to catch it at just the right moment to make it work. You have to close the window, the command line window, when you're doing it in Windows to do it. We'll just close that. You want to close this session? Yes, I do. Bam. Done. And so we've taken Telnet. We found some use cases for it. It's great for testing. It's great to establish communication when you don't need or care about security. It's great for fun things like this. There is a use case. Mostly not. Mostly if you're going to do something with text-based remote connections, you're going to use SSH. And it takes two sides to do this, right? You need a Telnet client somewhere, and you need a Telnet server. That one was set up anonymous, so you don't have to set up an account or a password. So isn't that cool? Sweet. 7 minutes left. Let me catch up on messages here. All right, mixed feelings about that. So I have to go back and try and figure out which that. Sliding by here. I guess it's for really old devices as long as they're air-gapped. Let's think about that. Air-gapped means there is no possible connection. There is no electronic connection anywhere, not through a router, not through a switch. Air-gapped says, I have two different networks, and the two cannot communicate with one another. So that may be kind of overkill. Telnet's the precursor to Skynet. I had SyncTerm installed. Don't think I added it back after I refreshed the main box. Okay, you can. Usenet. Oh man, we're going back in the day. I was a Usenet user maybe back. Telnet can be used for reading Usenet news groups. Okay, I never knew that. You forgot about that trick. Sweet. Surprise R2-D2 kept his job. Every word he said was beat. Sometimes I'm embarrassed for some of my audience. Yeah, Patricia Grace, tell them. Hey, well, kids, that is the show. A short one where we're not going to run long for a change of itchy nose. Sorry about that. I don't know what I'm doing next week. Again, I got Saturday is completely honked up. We got to be at the polls at 6, have them set up to run by 7. The polls will be open 7 to 7. And why am I have my head in my own headshot. That's ridiculous. Sorry. Scott, why aren't you here? You would have sent a message to my phone saying, Dave, you're an idiot. Hey, somebody make sure to tell Andre de Goyard if I don't. To check the show out, since it was his countrymen who get the credit for all of this. I'm innocent. Said no one about Jason ever. So I don't know what next week's show is going to be. I got all this polling, and this is weird. We're doing a paper poll because it's a very small district kind of thing. We're using poll books. It's got about 3,000 names in it. You got to look people up, hand them a paper ballot. They go do the thing, then they put it in a ballot box. So when the polls close, I didn't get to finish this thing, so I am not the presiding judge. However, because of, unfortunately, my experience in doing this, they forced me to be the alternate judge, which basically means I'm a clerk unless the presiding judge is busy and judge stuff needs to be done, or he had to step out for some reason, grab some lunch, something like that. And the third horrible job, you have to stay after the polls close and participate in the manual counting of ballots. We got to have 3 people to do that. And, I want to be done. I don't want to do cleanup. That's what's nice about being a clerk. You do a little cleanup of your area and you get the flock out of there. But no, I got to do full cleanup and I got to do ballot counting and bleh. So I'll be thinking about show that time because, again, we're not expecting a great turnout for that. We'll figure something out. I don't have anybody officially scheduled right now as a guest, but I'm always on the prowl. There is somebody that I met with a couple of weeks ago who wants to be on the show, and I want him to be on the show. And I lost his contact information. So I reached out to his company, and they have utterly ignored me for weeks. And this is just bugging the heck out of me. So I'm going to make another stab at it this week because he's going to be really interesting if we get him. What else do we have here? Nope, nothing but that. Oh, I put something up here. Is this useful or something that I highlighted? Oh, yeah, okay. That'll be ready shortly. I mean, the innocent part. All right, questions, thoughts? I won't drag this out for a change. If we're done, we're done. Yeah, we got a minute and a half anyway, so. What do you say we close this puppy up? I will see you all again on Thursday with some. I have some really good shows in mind. There wasn't much prep time this week to do the good ones, and some of the ones that I really want to do, I wasn't able to make work with the short time that I had to develop them. So I have a list of about 15 to 20 projects, all of which would be super cool. Hey, what do you guys think about any kind of AI project on a Raspberry Pi? You guys have any feelings about that? Do it, don't care. You have 10 seconds to respond. I know I've got about a 7-second lead on you, so I put this out. I have no idea what's going to happen here. Okay, do it. Project will be good. Give me your feedback on the Discord server. And what do you say we wind this thing up? Can't do that. Okay, I can do that. And then we can do this. And do that. What just happened there? I have to do this. Okay. Change of pace. So as ever and always, I wish you a great rest of the week. Take care of each other. Take serious steps to stay healthy. And if at all possible, call or visit your parents. Excuse me. Never forget, technology is great. And the greatest resource we have are you and I. And with that, I will see you on ADRAMADA next week and on the other platforms I'm on. Until then, remember, how you do anything is how you do everything. Eep, op, ork, ah. There you. Awkward stare. My mouse disappeared. There we go. Bye-bye.